right, hour number 2 here on Outspoken. Dan Sileo here, and I really appreciate each and every single one of you coming aboard here. What a great weekend we have in sports. Selection Sunday, we've got all the free agency in the National Football League going on, and obviously the college basketball tournament, World Baseball Classic also going on. And I got to tell you, I had a chance to become friends with truly one of the greatest broadcasters of all time, and that's Chris Myers. Chris Myers, of course, got and cut his chops when he was at ESPN, and we just so love the fact that we've been friends with him for such a long period of time. We caught up with him just a couple days ago and had a conversation with him a little bit about Michael Jordan and NASCAR and also the NFL. Here's our friend Chris Myers. You know, one of my favorite people to talk to all the time is my friend Chris Myers. We go back a long way to Fox Sports Radio. I mean, back when he was
Yeah.
like, I'm going to say 19 years old. And here he is now with us here now with Fox Sports. He's my friend Chris Myers. How you doing, Chris? So great to catch up with you again, man. I mean, been a long time, man. I mean, thank you for doing this for me.
Yeah. Oh no, glad to jump on. It was cool. You had Jimmy Roberts, Roy Firestone, some of those guys from the ESPN days, and saw them on your show. Brought back some memories, and enjoyed our radio. You know, it's funny when you go back over the early years of ESPN. Mike Tirico and I kind of broke in ESPN radio when they were starting to establish that, which is many years, and then Fox Sports Radio. I kind of broke that in with guys like yourself, JT the Brick. There were certain people that helped. So time goes by, but radio's in my roots, and it always will be.
I got to start it off with NASCAR. I mean, before we get into the NFL, I think it's been a great story, starting with Daytona, with Tyler Reddick and what Michael Jordan has done now being a car owner. I mean, who would have thought those guys were in a courtroom prior to the season starting, and now they're like the front page storyline with the NASCAR season.
Yeah, finally Ryan Blaney cooled him off on the race in Phoenix, but my goodness, Michael Jordan, he wins. He wins in court, which I think was a benefit, and I'm glad that they were able to have not only the legal settlement but a handshake agreement to take it forward for charter groups in NASCAR. But I think it's a benefit overall for NASCAR and the teams. And then as the co-owner of that 2311 team, and the 23 for his number and the 11 for Denny Hamlin, who races for Joe Gibbs Racing, but is a part owner in this, and their relationship began just being sports fans, and Michael being a fan of NASCAR growing up in the South. But Tyler Reddick, yeah, I mean, he didn't win a race at all last year. Comes out, wins the biggest race you can, Daytona 500, bang bang, and then it's interesting, Dan. Never in the 78-year history of NASCAR had somebody won with all the great drivers, historic, whether Richard Petty or Earnhardt or Jeff Gordon, that nobody won the first 3 races of a season until Tyler Reddick. So he and Michael Jordan, his owner, are in the history books. But the greatest thing to watch is Michael's true, I want to say, fanboy appreciation of it. It's a whole different element than when he obviously was a player and then involved in some NBA in the front office. But he's really, really enjoying it and having a good time. Like he jokes, "Hey, I'm just the money man." But his competitive approach to things, he sets a standard that not just the driver, but the crew chief, everybody involved. And it's really lifted NASCAR. I think more attention, different to people that that wouldn't really give NASCAR much the time of day outside of the sports world on different networks. Different people that are writing about it have given it a lot of attention. So that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Let me start out with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's go over to the NFL. You do
All right.
preseason coverage for them. You're the play-by-play guy. So Chris, Mike Evans leaving. I mean, obviously one of the legendary benchmark guys in the history of that program. He makes an interesting comment too on the way out the door with his agent, Derek Gilmore. I wanted to go to a place that was a true competitor for a Super Bowl. I mean, that throws a little bit of shade there on the Buccaneers. Your takeaway on him leaving and going to San Francisco?
Yeah, I'm disappointed in that. I thought, just being a guy who appreciates what the Bucks are about, that I thought he'd end his career there. And it's funny, last year before they re-signed him, or the last contract, I should say, the Rams, when he was a free agent, had a pretty good offer that was actually more money than Tampa Bay, but he took the Bucks because of wanting to stay there, and I think he thought they could get back to another Super Bowl, and here they missed the playoffs last year. So I think he speaks from the heart, so I appreciate his honesty. I think he's essentially saying, the Bucks are contenders, but are they Super Bowl contenders? And I thought maybe he'd end up going to a place like Houston, back in some of his Texas roots in college football. Interesting selection with the 49ers, but certainly I could appreciate that. And the Bucks, look, they had an inkling for this. I thought Godwin would be out of the picture before Evans, but they've drafted some young receivers to set themselves up for this. And I just think the disappointment of last year might have been a little bit too much for him. But he's very entrenched too in the Tampa and the Florida community there. So that'll be an interesting transition. And my God, when he sees the taxes, that check's going to look a little bit different from the state of California, right? Compared to Florida. And I've lived in both. And man, California will just tear your take your check apart and tear it up and put it towards who knows what. Anyway,
You bet,
that's it.
no doubt. Strawberries are $18 a piece in California, Chris. So, I mean, I get it there. Hey, I got to ask you about this week's news, and that is the Max Crosby thing. Wow. You signed a contract, or, you basically agreed to a contract on Friday. All of a sudden, in the physicals, they come back, and boy, I think, Chris, it's more to me like it looked like Baltimore had buyer's remorse because it was a meniscus injury. I talked to Dr. David Chow about it. And as you
Yeah.
know, covering this league a long time, that's kind of a maintenance thing there when you're talking about meniscus. I mean, what was your takeaway, especially with an organization, Chris, like Baltimore, that's got such a great reputation on how they deal with people and how people look at them? That was a really
Yeah.
wild show going on in Baltimore.
Yeah, the time we're talking, I do think the league should investigate. I mean, I've heard what Baltimore said and the Raiders, and I did a couple of his games, and even later in the year with Crosby, and he wasn't missing a beat. I mean, we knew the guy never does, but we knew he was going to have this type of surgery. And you're right, I'm not a doctor, but and if he was good enough to play for the Raiders, why isn't he good enough to play for some other team? I understand why they were making the trade. So, and then they go out and they get Trey Hendrickson to help their pass rush, but the Ravens keep their top two picks. So I think there's something there that just doesn't seem to fit. However, they have they have this league signing dates. They have these specific dates, and I think part of the problem, I wonder if somebody, you get played on these, and if agents or I'm not accusing anybody, but people leak the word out that, hey, we got a deal in place. Look, coaches have changed their mind at the last moment, becoming a head coach in the NFL and switching. So you're allowed to do that, but this is an organization. If you had an agreement in principle and a handshake, and I know nothing's official until that signing date with contracts, right, when the league allows that, then I think if you can't be taken at your word in this, then people are going to have an issue with that. So we'll see where it goes. I think the Raiders are on the losing end of this. I mean, he'll still give their best unless there's some other trade that takes place in the meantime. If other teams are interested, I think I saw where the Cowboys are already out of. They were in before, but they're already out of that mix. And that's the problem too. A lot of other teams have moved on to fill other things or made a deal. Dallas made the Rashawn Gary deal with the Packers. So I think they have to bottle those things up before information gets out. Just have it that official signing date that you can't, if that's possible. I don't know.
Yep, absolutely, Chris. We're going to continue our conversation with you here in a second here. Folks, Chris Myers from Fox Sports. Keep it right here on SportsGrid. All right, we're going to continue our conversation with him here in a second, but I want to get to my friends here at Morgan & Morgan, the number one injury law firm in all of America for a reason. It is family-owned and family-run. Hey, with over 25 years of experience, there is no firm like Morgan & Morgan, okay? I mean, look, I tell you about the family that's in Florida. They were initially offered $350K. They ended up getting a $12 million settlement. Or the family in Pennsylvania, $650K. They ended up getting nearly $30 million in settlement. There is no firm like Morgan & Morgan. Go to forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. And do me a favor, you make sure you tell them Big Sales sent you. We're going to continue more of our conversation with Chris Myers, one of the legendary broadcasters from ESPN and now with Fox Sports. We'll do that next. You keep it right here on SportsGrid. All right, welcome back here at Outspoken. Dan Sileo here, and I will tell you one of my truly great friends in broadcasting is Chris Myers. Started it off at ESPN. He's now with Fox Sports. We talked a little bit of NFL, and here he is right here continuing our conversation, Chris Myers. All right, we're continuing our conversation with my friend Chris Myers here, and we were just talking some NFL here. But before I get back into the NFL, I saw Mike Tirico over with the Olympic Games, and I wonder what Chris Myers, my friend here, goes back a long way with Mike Tirico and all you ESPN guys. I mean, I thought he was just brilliant, Chris. I mean, boy, do you ever look back at, your time there at ESPN with all those great legendary guys that were there. I mean, the way it started all the way back in the day in the 80s and 90s, and you guys just took it, Sports Center, to a new level. I mean, do you ever look back at that and just know that you guys were like the godfathers, so to speak, of how sports
Yeah.
was being presented? Because you see all these avenues now, Chris, and all you guys really were the first guys to start it.
It was, and thanks for saying that. No, and I do. I look back fondly on and I call them the golden years because then ESPN was the only game in town, and there was only ESPN. There wasn't a two and an ESPNU and streaming and some of the things which are great for sports fans now to have an MLB network, an NFL network, etc. I got there in '89. I mean, they started in '79, but the real pillars, and I worked with some great people. Linda Cohn, you mentioned what Mike Tirico has done. I really for a few years at Sports Center and then as a reporter and won the first Emmy award that was ever as a reporter for ESPN. Talk about Jimmy Roberts, Roy Firestone later coming on, taking over up close after he stepped away from that show that was on ESPN. Such a great show that he established. But yeah, those. I mean, the true Chris Berman, who I stay in touch with, Bob Lee, they're the anchors and the pillars of a place that started out with, hey, can that work? And it's obviously worked very well. And Bob had the journalistic side of sports, and Berman was the fun fan side, and we all kind of played off of that through the years, and I did at first the late Sports Center, a few earlies with Charlie Steiner. There's a name from the past, Bill Patrick, even Tom Mees, may he rest in peace. It was such a tragic loss when he passed away. Stuart Scott, Tim Brando was on there a little bit before me. So yeah, I do. I'm very grateful for it. And when I went to Fox, and I've been at Fox more than 20 years, I like, you go to a network that's growing and adding sports and adding people and thinking big, and you never know where it's going to take you. So those were some really good times. The early years when you're building something, and it was Bill Murray who often told me that from SNL and then into films that, you look back and those are the years, even though there's a lot unknown, are you going to make it? But those are often the most fun years because you're climbing the ladder in the industry, and the industry is growing and you're contributing to it. So yes, I always look fondly and I'm grateful for that opportunity.
You speak of growing. The NFL obviously became a big staple at ESPN once you guys ended up getting the broadcast rights for that and being able to broadcast those games. Now we're talking about potentially, I mean, Chris, they want to do a Thanksgiving Eve game now. That's being reported now. Have you been shocked with the growth of the league? I mean, in 1994, Chris, the salary cap was $34 million. Today it's 3012. Have you been shocked with the growth of the league?
No, I'm not shocked at all because my roots were in, we talk about radio, but football growing up in the Miami, South Florida area. And then, of course, the NFL back in the Dolphins as a kid, the undefeated Dolphins, still the only perfect team. So I became, that was my first love in any sport. And I obviously enjoy all, but I thought back, even when I left ESPN, remember there was a conference call when I left ESPN to go to Fox with some of the writers, and people laughed at me, and I said, "You watch. There's going to be the growth. There's going to be an NFL network. I mean, the NFL is so big, and they became big. The product is good. America runs on football. I know it's a slogan for Duncan, but the truth is that's where we are. From the season that really means something, every game valuable, to free agency, the draft. We're talking about things in the off season. They really do it right. People think they're going to be over saturated, but maybe with streaming they found new ways to do things. The NFL is a powerhouse, and the product, even though we complain about officiating or certain things, it's still it's number one for a reason, at least in America, and internationally, that's the next phase. But I'm not shocked at all because it's going to continue to grow. And they're wise about how they reach out and what they go to next, whether it's social, whether it's streaming or through social media. Whatever they do right now, they're doing it right.
Are you a fan in 30 seconds, Chris? Are you a fan of the NFL expanding overseas and potentially
Uh,
having a team over there? Would you like to see that or no?
No, not now. I think it's too early. I think you got to give that a decade, especially given where the world is with things. And I don't certainly don't want a Super Bowl over
Mm.
there. Not for a long time. I mean, and look, it's not my decision, but that's just me as a fan talking. And I think too many international games, too many. Some are good, and I get it. I get the business part of it and tap markets that have money, but you do too many of those, you're taking a home game away. They're going to say somebody has a home game over in London or Brazil, but you're taking a home game away from diehard fans who only have so many home games anyway. I know we're talking about expanding the season, which I think I would be in favor of an 18 game schedule, but I think we got to be careful about the international. How far are you going to push that? And I know it's good business down the road, and all sports are becoming more and more global. But I think you have to take some certain steps, and hopefully they'll take the right steps so that the fan, the NFL fan, and the US of A doesn't feel like they're being overlooked or pushed aside or pushed to the second seat in the stadium.
And I will tell you, folks, how I met this man. I met this man through Edwin Pope. Back in the
Yes,
day, one of my
great
favorite
writer.
people of all time. He loved me very much, and he said, "You got to meet up with Chris Myers." And we ended up meeting up at Fox Sports Radio. Chris, I so appreciate you doing this. Thank you so much, my friend.
You got a great memory. He was with the Miami Herald, one of the great writers who covered Shula and the Dolphins. That's great. Good seeing you again. Take care.
You got it. That is truly one of my great friends, Chris Myers. We had such a great time when we were there at Fox Sports Radio, and we really started that network there too. So truly, it's amazing right now when you're looking at where the National Football League is. I mean, think about the NFL. The NFL wants to get to 20 games soon. They're going to get to 18 games probably in the next 2 years, maybe even as we're talking here, they're talking about the 2027 season where they want to go 18 games. So let me get this right. During the holidays, we're going to have Christmas Eve football. We're going to have Christmas Day football. We're going to have Black Friday football. We're going to have Sunday football. And then we're going to have Monday football. Holy, I mean, the National Football League, there is nothing like it, my friends. 94 of the top 100 TV shows are NFL. We will talk Max Crosby next, right here on Sports Grid. With the Academy Awards happening on Sunday, I saw one of the greatest acting jobs in the history of the National Football League, and it was by Eric DaCosta, the general manager of the Baltimore Ravens. What a charade that whole thing was with Max Crosby the entire week. So let me play this out for you here. So last week, they strike a deal with the Las Vegas Raiders to send two number ones to get Max Crosby. Now, knowing full well that he had meniscus surgery in January. You know, I had this thing explained to me, and I've had the meniscus procedure that Max Crosby had, not to the extent where he has had, but I've had meniscus surgery. Okay, it's like mowing the lawn versus resodding a field. He had this, he had the procedure that was more resodding the field, which takes a little bit longer time. There's players in the National Football League that play without meniscuses. Okay, just so you know, it's more of a maintenance for guys that really have played a lot of downs. And Max Crosby's played a lot of downs. Know this, he was never going to pass a physical. No matter what the Ravens were going to put him through and putting him through a physical, he had no chance of passing that physical with the Ravens. They still construct a deal. So you know what happened? Over the weekend, I believe they had buyer's remorse. They looked at it and they went, wait a minute here. We're sending two number ones to the Las Vegas Raiders. So you know what the Raiders started doing? They started signing guys like Tyler Linderbaum from the Ravens. They started signing guys from the Eagles and Nakobe Dean. They started restructuring their football team and their salary cap. Well, guess what? By the time Monday came, Max Crosby was in the Baltimore building. And in that process, they were negotiating with Trey Hendrickson. So they knew right then and there that they were going to fail Max Crosby when it came to his physical. They were double railing, which is they were running a double here. They were negotiating with Trey Hendrickson. They gave him an APY, $28 million per year, which means that they paid him less than what they were going to pay Max Crosby at $35 million. And they were going through some charade that, hey, wait, we thought we would sign both. I was listening to Eric DaCosta the entire time. Oh my God, I'm so heartbroken on what happened. Hey, dude, so let me get this right. You renege on the deal, right? And then you send Max Crosby back to the Raiders as damaged goods. So what you do is you send back a player, and now the rest of the league looks at him as damaged goods. No other team is going to call the Raiders now and offer up two number ones. So what happened in the process with the Raiders? The Raiders, who had a lot of money under the salary cap, they were able to fit all the teams and all the guys that they had signed for the team, and they honored all of the contracts that they went out and got in free agency. But what you do is you absolutely diminish a player. The Baltimore Ravens, they put this entire charade on. Now, look, here's the ugly thing about this. They really didn't do anything wrong. They had buyer's remorse. Remember, it was legal tampering time on Monday. And so this gave them the opportunity all the way until Wednesday at 4 p.m. to be able to bail on this deal. But Hoss, you send a player back as damaged goods? Look, I got a lot of respect for Eric DaCosta. You know, he learned from Ozzie Newsome, truly one of the greatest general managers in all of pro football, not just with his legendary playing days, but he went on to become a great executive. But I have to look at the Ravens moving forward. Do you really want to do business with an organization that is going to hurt a product that you have, which is your player, Max Crosby? Max Crosby now goes back, and you know what? It's all like a love fest going on now with the Raiders. Oh, yeah, we love one another because, look, I'm not trading Max Crosby for two twos now. I'd rather have him on my football team. $35 million a year. Now they've got to fit that back under their salary cap. Look, he's a good football player, and really this free agency market really wasn't a big-time market anyway. There wasn't a needle mover in it. There was really more guys that were really going to be kind of plug and play. Take a look at Jalen Phillips' contract that he got with the Carolina Panthers. This guy's never made a Pro Bowl. Hell, Shedeur Sanders made a Pro Bowl. This guy's never made one, and he's getting 30 APY. $30 million annually for a guy who also has injury concerns. Now, his age helps him out, but look at what Carolina did. You're seeing a lot of really good football players getting exceptional money. That's what this free agency period was. But this train wreck of a deal in Baltimore, what an absolute train wreck it was. Sending Max Crosby back. You're negotiating at the same time with Trey Hendrickson, and you had buyer's remorse. Let me get my 2-1s back. I get to pay the guy $28 million annually, which is less than what I was going to pay Max Crosby. Oh, yeah, by the way, psych, I don't want to do the deal. I mean, I got great respect for Eric DeCosta. I think he's truly one of the best, but man, not a cool move there in Baltimore. We will talk WBC. It's college basketball with Tommy Lorenzo next on Sports.
Well, still, even though he gave up that home run, Tom, you know the number's going to be there. If he stays healthy, who's touching that guy?
Well, you mentioned him. The only player I've interest in betting on for the AL Cy Young this year would be Brian Wu. And it's a combination of everything. It's a combination of the odds. It's a combination of his underlying skill set, where I believe he's trending in terms of his career.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
On the Thunder side, while they haven't had their stars totally for the entire regular season, they're still 3-4 games ahead of where the Spurs are, and that says a lot. Without SGA, without J-Dub, who's missed a large chunk of the year, Chet missed some time, for them to be still good enough to keep winning and stacking these wins, it means something, and it's actually building confidence for those others.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
You put Zach Branch on the Buffalo Bills on the football field at the same time with Cook and these wide receivers, and you have Branch set up in a slot in motion and stuff, and you put that speed. I want a game difference maker. DJ Moore's not a difference maker, right? He helps, he's good, right? But it's not that game changer. But to me, Kevin, they need game changers on the defensive side of the football.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
I've been watching the World Baseball Classic, and I got to tell you, every time the Dominican team plays, I get jacked up because you see the love that they have for the sport and for the tournament. I watch the Americans. I'm not so sure that we're seeing the same kind of passion that we got going for that team versus the Dominican team. We talked to Tommy Lorenzo now and get his opinion on it here. And Tommy, thanks for doing it with us here, man. We really appreciate it. But what's your takeaway on the World Baseball Classic? Are you enjoying it?
Oh, enjoying it a lot. And I think the passion some of these teams show, like you just mentioned with the Dominican team, is fantastic. I think for the U.S. team, I think a little bit of the bumpy road that they hit may have woken them up a little bit. I liked how they looked last night. It's still a game that shouldn't have been as close as it ended up being. But I think that shook their cage a little bit. Now with Paul Skeens, hitting the bump, and I think things will be a little better. But the Dominican team's dangerous, Venezuela's dangerous. You got Otani in Japan. This is still up in the air. It's going to be fun to see how this all shakes out.
Tell me who Team Italy is. I mean, they've been one of the surprises in this tournament. No, I mean, really a great showing. Obviously, the upset over the American team. Who's Team Italy?
It's funny. It's kind of a ragtag group, but they play very hard for their manager. He's making a push to be the Yankees manager one day, I think, Cervelli. But, with Italy and this game against Puerto Rico, I wouldn't count out Italy here. They have a young lefty on the mound. He's in the Angels minor league system, but Puerto Rico really hasn't hit much. I don't think they've exceeded 4 runs in their last few games. So, their bats are kind of asleep right now. And if they're not careful, Italy could, with a couple of errors or something that, goes sideways, there could be a little pressure on them. I would expect Puerto Rico to win. They do have, higher pedigree, obviously, than Italy, but I would not be completely shocked if Italy gives them a good game and maybe pulls off a surprise.
How good is Team Italy? Or excuse me, how good is Team Japan here with Otani? You just mentioned them, Yamamoto and all those dudes. I mean, that's just a great looking baseball team now. Are they the team to beat, in your opinion? One of the top 3 teams, Dominican, USA, and this Japan team? How good?
Yeah, I think they are. But interestingly enough, the odds on them, I think they're the third choice, 3.5, 4 to 1, which was pretty interesting to me. And I think a lot of that has to do with once they clear Yamamoto, he's pitching next. I think they have the pitching advantage, today. Ranger Suarez is not a guy I'm very confident in terms of shutting down Team Japan. I think this will come down to the bullpens like a lot of these games do. But Japan's going to be very tough to beat. But if you get the right pitcher up there to quell those hitters a little bit, Japan's very beatable. So again, it's going to be very interesting how all this pans out. You've got the big 3: Dominican, USA, Japan, but don't count out Venezuela either. I think Venezuela, they've got some good hitters on that team. They can pull a surprise as well. So it's going to be very fun to see how this ends up.
Who do you think has been the MVP in this tournament so far? I mean, if you look at, the guys that have performed in this, I saw Soto with a really nice play at the plate. I've seen some really great players. I tell you what, the guy who got out to a great start, I know it was exhibition against the Tigers and it was Junior Caminero, but there's so many good players in this tournament. In your opinion, who is the MVP so far?
Yeah, I think you probably have to lean Soto. But I think that's obviously, Dan, that's going to be determined here over the next, couple games here in the semis and the final, I think. But right now, Soto would be the one. But again, Shohei hits another bomb or two. He's going to, crank right back up. A lot of people are thinking Aaron Judge, is waiting to explode. So I think the MVP race, given the odds right now, it's a fun thing to get involved in because you're at 5 to 1 or higher with a bunch of these guys, and really what you're going to look at is the performance over the next couple games, because right now it's all the horses are heading to the finish line 5-6 in a row, so we'll see at the end who comes out on top. But I don't think you could go wrong with Shohei, Aaron Judge, or Soto at the odds right now, but anyone could pop.
I've been asking this question to everybody, and I'll ask you this one. Would you be a fan of seeing like the MLB players in LA 28? I mean, I know it kind of is going to be a little difficult, especially with the start of a season like you have in the middle of the, NHL season, you have to go to the Olympic break. But in your opinion, would you be a fan of those guys playing in LA 28?
I really would. Look what it does for hockey. Look how I'm a very low key hockey fan, but boy, when those national tournaments, especially the Olympics, come on board, boy, man, I'm watching Team USA, I'm watching Canada, watching all those good teams. I think it'd be a good thing, but you're protecting pitchers. You're in the middle of the season, and with the money involved with MLB, you know how hard that's going to be, Dan. But yeah, I would love to see it.
I'll tell you what Bobby Valentine's suggestion was. He was on our show a couple weeks ago, and he made this comment: hey, put the baseball in the winter games and have them in the winter games where you can have them play in the Winter Olympics and it wouldn't overlap a season. And if anybody ended up getting injured, you'd have time to kind of rehab yourself, getting ready for the spring. I mean, that'd be another option, is instead put them in domes, give them an opportunity to play, and put them in the winter games. I mean, you get a chance not to overlap the season.
I had not heard that. I think that's a genius idea. I think that's a fantastic idea. A lot of guys are playing winter ball anyway, and you can get a bigger roster with guys that, can go in and do that. I think that's a fantastic idea. You'd get a lot of eyes on that as well.
Absolutely. You bring up Shohei Ohtani, and I have this conversation. I covered the San Francisco Giants for about 3 years when I was out in San Francisco working on their network. I never saw a player in my entire life ever anyone near that came close to Barry Bonds. Is this guy just a different unicorn type of player? Because, again, he hurts his arm. He creates the 50-50, stolen bases, 50 home runs, Tommy. I mean, give me an example. Or is he just a one of what we see in Major League Baseball, that there's nothing, nor have we ever seen anything like him?
Yeah, I guess the easy thing to say is time will tell, but time is telling already. I grew up in the era of Barry Bonds, Canseco, McGuire, those massive power hitters that just crushed baseballs. But when you talk about Ohtani, like you said, it's a unicorn. It's something so different. And Barry Bonds was unbelievable. And I don't think I would have ever seen a hitter, regardless of the enhancements, as you would say, or not, physical enhancements. What I'm seeing out of Shohei, it's generational. I think when people were watching Babe Ruth, I think this is the same thing that, our generation or being alive right now, seeing Shohei, it's kind of the same thing. It's a once in 100 years player. And it's a pleasure to watch. As a Dodger fan, obviously, it's even that much sweeter, but it really is incredible what he's doing. And hopefully he stays healthy and can play another 10 years at a high level.
Hey, are you getting a sense that the general managers and owners are in favor of this WBC? Because, if you talk to some of the people during the winter games and the hockey guys, they were a little concerned because guys were getting injured. Some guys were even lost for the rest of the season. Have there been some people that have been concerned, especially when it comes to guys on the hill for this tournament? Again, you're taking a shot. You're getting ready for spring here. Has that been a concern to some of these organizations?
Yeah, I think so. And the agents as well. I think the agents are very worried about it too, given, potential contracts and things coming up. I think Tarek Skubal is a perfect example. He's on the precipice of making a boatload of money with a huge contract, and he had to bow out of the World Baseball Classic. He was kind of mysterious, a little esoteric about the reasons why. But I think, it could have been the Detroit front office. It could have been his agent, not sure. But there's always going to be forces at play with all the money involved with this. I don't think the front office likes seeing their guys out there. As a Dodger fan, I don't like seeing Yamamoto out there. This guy went over and beyond with innings pitched last year going into the World Series, and now he's going to be in here high pressure throwing gas, and it's not even April yet. And the three-peat season is upon us here as a Dodger fan, and I'm going to see Yamamoto go out there and try to win a game for Team Japan. It's fun from that aspect, but to me, it's worrisome as a fan, and I could imagine the front office with the money invested, they're probably not 100% on board with the injury risk.
Absolutely. And what I saw yesterday, I believe I saw that Clayton Kershaw is now bowing out. I want to ask you a little bit about that. We'll do that next. The pro baseball. Our friend Tommy Lorenzo next right here on SportsGrid.
You wouldn't have your ex officiate your wedding.
Do you, Jake? Liar? Cheater? Gaslighter?
So why have anyone but America's largest injury law firm handle your injury case? With over $30 billion recovered for our clients, there's a reason to go big.
Gaslighter, coitus crier, he's got more red flags than a bullfighter's attire.
Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
Everybody has to develop, you know that. Think about Joe Burrow, okay? The beginning of his senior year, he was projected a 6th round draft pick, okay? And that's after playing a year at LSU. So Arch still has some developing to do, but he does have the potential to be a great player.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo. Only on SportsGrid.
This is not a probability market. This is an information narrative market, which, by the way, there are already people who know the answer to this question. So yes. You are not, you're not battling getting the right price. This is not math. This is who the hell knows where Taylor Swift might get. Yeah. You know who knows? Taylor Swift's people.
Prediction Markets Edge. Only on SportsGrid.
I love these tournaments. I love the Olympics. I love NFL drafts. I love events. I love the UFL, arena football.
Yeah.
Dude, the sports books don't have algorithm computers for this, Kevin. They don't freaking know. How the hell is a sports book supposed to set a number for this? They didn't. Yeah. Dude, the FanDuel had USA at -5.5.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
I really wish I could pull out my crystal ball and predict accurately the future and put money on it and see if I could win. But I think the answer of where we're heading is more uncertainty, and in the short term, more companies, like you mentioned, trying to capitalize on that. When prediction markets first kind of took off this past year, there was a little bit of a hesitancy from sports.
All right, I'm talking to my neighbor here now, Tommy Lorenzo. We're going to do a little Major League Baseball here, but I got to ask you first and foremost here, Clayton Kershaw, he's bowing out. You tell me now, would you rather have Madison Bumgarner in the postseason, or would you rather have Clayton Kershaw in the postseason if you had to win a 9-inning ball game? Who would you take back in the day?
As a Dodger fan, you're really putting me on the spot because Clayton Kershaw's antics in the postseason compared to Madison Bumgarner. So as far as a postseason, sure, Madison Bumgarner. But Clayton Kershaw, another generational pitcher, Cy Young awards, and the Dodgers won a lot of pennants before these latest World Series runs over the last 4 or 5 years. But it's nice to have those type of generational pitchers on a team you root for, and now we've got Shohei obviously and some other guys. But if you ask me about World Series or the grittiness, my man Kershaw struggled a little bit in the postseason. Bumgarner was a lot more. I think he just had the just that attitude that helped him in the postseason, that nastiness to him.
Well, let me go here then with Clayton Kershaw here. Second best pitcher in Dodger history, Newcomb, of course, Koufax, Drysdale, and these guys, and also too, Oral Hershiser. You could even throw, Fernando Valenzuela in that conversation as well. As well. In your opinion, where do you put Kershaw? Behind Koufax?
I do. I think I put him right behind Koufax. Has to be. The thing is, Kershaw was able to pitch a lot longer, obviously, but just the lore of Koufax as well, and what he did when he was at his elite level before getting hurt is pretty unbelievable. Fernando had a lot of cultural significance. Me growing up in LA, when the LAPD came by, they had LA Dodger cards, and we just hoped they had that Fernando card. All the kids would be collecting those. So from a cultural thing, Fernando Valenzuela is pretty big, but overall, I think you've got to say Koufax and Kershaw 1-2 there in terms of, Dodgers pitchers.
Tommy, not to get too political with you here, but I'll say this to you about Fernando Valenzuela, who passed away a year ago. I think he's the most important Los Angeles Dodger in the history of that franchise because of what happened with Chavez Ravine. When they went in there, they displaced all the Mexican Americans who lived there. Without Fernando Valenzuela, you don't really have a organization with really great fan base, with really the great Mexican fans that really turned around. It was him who brought the Mexican fans back to the Dodgers. Am I correct when I say that?
100%. During that era, you had guys like Pedro Guerrero and others, but Fernando really brought the Latino market in. You have a guy named Jaime Jarrín, which is the Vince Scully of Spanish-speaking folks here in Southern California, and it was just a time where you had a lot of new fans come up, and Fernando was a very big part of that. The Latino community, and obviously now the Latino community backs the Dodgers like nobody else. So yeah, it was a turning point that really was a game changer for the organization. I remember when I was little, the whole Fernando Valenzuela thing. There was no internet then or anything like that. It was newspapers, magazines, and TV, and he was all over the place in LA.
I'll make this point to you. You look at Jackie Robinson's numbers. They're not Hall of Fame numbers, but his significance in the sport was important. I think Fernando Valenzuela's importance in the sport is almost not to that level because he crossed the color line, obviously in 47. But in your opinion, Fernando Valenzuela's importance could be Hall of Fame worthy, no?
Oh, from the same standpoint, absolutely. Again, he brought a whole new set of fans in. He broke barriers as well, just like Jackie Robinson did. So, a generational player, not only with statistically, Fernando, when you look at the whole body of work, you see, okay, it was a pretty solid MLB pitcher. But for that window, what he did on the field, which was incredible as a rookie, but also culturally what he did and what Jackie Robinson did, very important in the whole, whether you want to call it pop culture or just the overall cultural aspect of baseball. Because I think baseball has that more than any other sport. You can argue maybe with Michael Jordan and some generational NFL players, but there's something about baseball that those things are amplified. And it was a great time to be a Dodgers fan back then. Beating the Yankees in '81, I remember as a young kid. It was a wonderful time, and Fernando Valenzuela was a huge part of that.
Absolutely. How well do you think that Andrew Friedman coming up from the Tampa Bay Rays organization. How well do you think he's run that organization, the Dodgers? And I say this to you, I'm probably setting the question up here on you here. This guy's got an open checkbook. When he was in Tampa, he didn't have an open checkbook. But this guy is like Theo Epstein. I mean, he's gone in there, built the farm system back up again. What a great job. He's a Hall of Fame GM, no?
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people miss, because a lot of people would say, well, with that type of bankroll, I could run the Dodgers and we'd be winning every year. Yeah, maybe. He's got a lot of money at his arsenal, there, but that minor league system is absolutely loaded. I follow the Dodgers pretty closely, and they've got some players down there that are fantastic. Some of them are blocked right now just because the Dodgers pick up talent and they're going to have to wait their trade pieces. But even the trades he's making have worked out pretty well. So, yeah, Andrew Friedman, fantastic GM. You saw what he did in Tampa. And now with, the checkbook availability, he's got the Dodgers rolling. I think the Dodgers now have a very big opportunity over the next several years. Obviously, when you have the money, it helps to keep contending for a long time, as long as, you have a front office doing what they're doing right now.
Let me go over to the American League East in a minute here. You think the Yankees are good enough defensively to win the East? I mean, a year ago, defense was a major issue with them. Starting pitching as well, too. Do they have enough, in your opinion?
Oh, I think they have enough starting pitching. Not only the main guys. A lot of people don't talk about the Cam Schlitlers, the Lewis Gills. I mean, those are pieces that are back into the rotation that are very, very good pitchers. They'll have a couple of guys coming back mid-season or before with Garrett Cole and Rodon. So that pitching staff is going to be fantastic. I think they win the East. I don't have any doubts about that, to be honest. Toronto will be fine. Baltimore, I think the Red Sox will be down a little bit, but I think the Yankees will win that division. That's my biggest bet on them. Once the playoffs start, we'll see. I think Seattle's going to bring a lot to the table, but in terms of, you can still get a plus number on the Yankees, I think, to win the NL East, and I would be making that bet. I've seen them at plus 100, plus 120, and that's good enough for me. I think they're going to be just fine.
Absolutely. I'm only going to give you 10 seconds for the Mets because that's all they kind of deserve. So you tell me, I mean, Juan Soto and the Mets, they do anything?
They do. In that division, to be honest, I think the Mets will get it done. I have some worries about the Phillies. Keep an eye on the Marlins. I think they're the sneaky ones.
Thank you so much, Tommy. Appreciate it. Bye. You know, I got to tell you, man, I've never heard anybody dunk on a player that achieves a great accomplishment like Bam Adebayo did this week. So this dude goes for 83 points, and it's now unethical. It's an unethical 83 points. Let me hook you up on what's unethical. The Washington Generals, known as the Washington Wizards, or wait, they used to be the Bullets when they had a decent identity, and Elvin Hayes was rolling through there, and they were winning championships back in the day and NBA Finals. So let me get this right. The Washington Wizards / the Washington Wizards guys, they're sitting there saying that this wasn't real basketball for Bam getting the 83. All right, so let me hook you up here. There were 9 minutes left in a game. Are you trying to tell me Kobe Bryant, if Kobe had 70 with 9 minutes left in a game, that Kobe's not going to go for Wilt's 100? I don't think anybody's ever going to touch Chamberlain's 100 points in a game. But come on, dude. Are you crazy? How about this just in? Why don't you play some defense? I mean, the Washington Wizards, they act like the Washington Generals, folks. That's the team that the Harlem Globetrotters kills every single time that they have an exhibition that they go around the country with. That's the team they beat up on. Well, the NBA has that version, and it's the Washington Wizards. They haven't been a decent organization since they've been the Bullets. And they're complaining, saying that this is not real basketball. Well, get this. You're not a real organization. 83 points, the second most points scored in NBA history. Eric Spoelstra, the coach, is like, I'm not apologizing for anything. Hey, did you not? You started triple teaming the guy at the end. How about let's do this? When the guy hit 40 points with 1 billion minutes left in the game, maybe you wanted to start playing some defense on the guy, and this was going to be the go-to dude for the Heat that night. No, not them. They're playing like it's an NBA All-Star game with no defense. And now you're going, it's unethical in how he got his 83 points. Look, I think everyone's bitching about this because it wasn't Steph Curry, or it wasn't SGA, or it wasn't Luka, one of them dudes. It was Bam who did this, and it was Bam who put up the second most points in NBA history on that stiff organization, the Washington Wizards, is it? Yeah, or the Generals. I don't know. Hey, man, look, that organization has been a train wreck. How about this? Play better hoop. How about this? Be a better organization. How about this? Show up and show you care. They hated the fact that this guy dropped that many points and it didn't look aesthetic to the eye. Nobody in the world is saying this. Hey, that looked like Kobe Bryant's 81 points when Kobe dropped in 81. Nobody's getting it. Nobody's going like this. Bam is one of the greatest players in the history of the NBA. But come on, man. Give the guy his flowers. He did something that no other guy's ever done except for Wilt Chamberlain. Chamberlain's numbers are like Wayne Gretzky's numbers. They're just like out of hand and they're out of touch. And when you're getting close to that 100 points in today's NBA, that is truly a great achievement. Good for him. Eric Spoelstra, the head coach of the Heat, was like, I'm not apologizing. Apologizing for what? Because the Wizards didn't want to play defense? Remember this here. I used to get this conversation all the time. Why does Jimmy Johnson run the score up on people? You know what I answer back and say? Hey, that's not my responsibility to sit here and worry about you and how you play with your football team. If you don't like it, stop it. If you don't like it, play defense. That's not my responsibility for me to back off and not play to the fullest of my ability because it makes you feel better in your life. How far do I have to go to make you feel better, Washington Wizards, that you didn't get killed by that Heat team and by Bam dropping 83 on you? This is totally on the NBA's Wizards. This is not on Bam or the Miami Heat or his teammates trying to get him the 83 points, 2 up on Kobe's 81. Come on, dog. This is on effort. The Wizards didn't want to show up, and the Wizards didn't want to play, and the Wizards didn't care until 9 minutes left in the game. And then they start bitching about it not being real hoop. Hey, nobody's ever going to mistake it for Kobe Bryant. Nobody's ever going to do this. Man, Bam. Wow, that guy, is he the next? Nobody's saying that, dude. Nobody's rolling down that lane. How about this? How about play better basketball? How about be a better organization? That might help. Maybe what you should do is go back to being the Washington Bullets. That's actually a better part of your history, and people remember you then. Bam, great job. All right, folks, we'll see you on Sunday, and we will catch you on the flip side.